Hello and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about wheels for rats. This is a question I see come up a lot, including with my own content, since I do have a wheel in all of my rat cages. I even used to have one in here before I moved Juno and Jojo down into the double. Or, sorry, into the single. Hi guys. They just got their snacks, so they're all a little bit active right now. They got their salads. So I apologize for any noise. And here's my cat. Come here. You gotta do the tail thing. She is purring so loud. I don't know if you guys can hear that. She's just so excited to be alive right now. Aren't you, baby? Yeah? So a lot of new time rat owners just don't know whether or not they should get a wheel for their rats. And a lot of times finding an appropriate wheel is very hard because the majority of the wheels that are sold in pet stores aren't suitable for any kind of pet. So you do have things like robo-dwarf hamsters, which can go into a really small wheel, but the smallest wheel they have is not suitable for a robo-dwarf hamster. So for any animal that is going to be using a wheel, this goes from the smallest animal to like the robo-dwarf all the way up to like some people use wheels for cats. Especially for rodents, which are going to be the most common animal to get a wheel, you want them when they're running for their back to be straight. Now, for rats, obviously they do have like a slightly hunched back already, but basically you don't want them to be curved like this. So if their natural posture does have them as a hunched back, you still want them to be straight like that, but you don't want them to curve their back like this. And the reason for that is because it can become an issue for them long term. You're going to see a Syrian hamster, which can get fairly large, running on a wheel and their back is completely curved like this because they're in a wheel that's like 8 inches when they should be in a wheel that is a minimum of 12 inches. And that's not good for them. So like most products that you can find in a pet store, it's not going to be the most helpful thing to you. It just isn't. Pet stores are more interested with keeping as many products on the shelves as possible, and because they are interested in keeping, for example, very small cages stocked on the shelves, they want as much inventory as they can so they can sell as much as possible within a day, which means that these tiny cages need wheels that are going to fit in them, and 12-inch wheels are not going to fit in these tiny cages that they sell. So most cages come with a 6 or an 8-inch wheel, sometimes as small as like a 4-inch wheel, and then they do things like put a baby Syrian in the wheel for the product photos to make it look like it's in a more appropriate size. But that does not make it so. So basically, you want the wheel to be large enough that their back will be completely straight and not curved. And so for rats, there's 2 sizes that you can use. For dwarf rats, you want a minimum of 12 inches. You can go a little bit bigger. I think even the smallest dwarf could probably turn a 16-inch wheel, which is the minimum size for standard size rats, 16 inches. And that can be difficult to find. I got my wheels from a place called Pandemonium Pets on Etsy, and I love them. I've had mine for about, I think, 5 years now, and they still work just as well as they ever did. They are completely silent. The only noise they make is the little tippy taps of the rat's feet on the metal. They're stainless steel, so they're super easy to keep clean. I do recommend going with stainless steel over, I'm sure some places use like galvanized steel. Here's the thing. So for my small trays that are both in this cage and that cage, my like shelf trays, I went with galvanized steel because it's a little bit cheaper, and I hate it. I hate it so much. They immediately got stained. They're immediately not as good. They're immediately just like awful. And so like I'm planning on switching my galvanized steel out for stainless steel. I'm going to be saving up for that because I just don't want them anymore. That tray is not flat. My apologies. And the same thing will go for a wheel. And rats are going to pee on a wheel because rats pee on everything. Like I clean out my wheels once a week with just a baby wipe. They're not as bad as like say hedgehogs, which wreck their wheels. But they still need to be cleaned out pretty frequently because the rats are going to pee as they run, and then that's going to get on their feet, and it's not necessarily the most sanitary thing for them. But as long as you just wipe them down like once a week, then it's fine. I've never had a problem with my wheels. Now, how hard of a rule is the sizes? So again, for dwarfs, I'm probably going to be switching their wheels because I have 2 different brands of wheels. I have this one in Wachino and Jojo, which is the Full Cheeks, the PetSmart brand wheel, and it's okay. For a plastic wheel, it's not the worst. It's like, it makes a lot of noise, it rattles a lot, but it's pretty sturdy and it's nice and deep so they can really be secure in there. And then for my dwarf group, I have a 12-inch silent spinner, and it is also okay. And to be fair, I know people who have dwarfs who have a 12-inch silent spinner and love it. They adore it. Mine's fine. It's fine. I'm not like, you want to not mess with that? I'm not calling home about it or anything. It's just, I can tell that it's got a shelf life on it and it's going to get really annoying at some point. And neither of them are quiet, honestly. My 16-inch wheels from Pandemonium Pets don't make a single sound. I do have another wheel that's 15 inches. I can't remember the brand. It's like some off-brand. And I have it in with the babies, and it is the loudest thing on the planet. The wheel itself is silent, but the bolts that attach it to the cage don't make a complete secure tight fit. So the washer, every time one of the rats jumps on the wheel, the washer pings back and forth, and it is so loud. You can hear it throughout the entire house when they do it because they go hard on that wheel. So yeah, not my favorite, but I'll pop the brand up here. I'll have to go look at it and figure out what the brand is. But if I remember to do that, I'll pop the brand up so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so with dwarfs, you can go a little bit bigger and it should be fine. Like even Aggie, I feel like could run on up to a 16-inch wheel. And I'm going to be replacing these plastic wheels, or at least their wheel, with a metal one, I think, because I just really don't like the plastic ones. I just don't care for them. And I'll probably replace it with probably a 14-inch wheel, because the size difference with dwarfs you can really feel. So Aggie is my smallest and she's, she's just a little bitty thing. But Polly, who's the biggest in that cage, she's pretty big and she doesn't really use the wheel that much, but like she could if she wanted to. And I feel like her back wouldn't be completely straight if she did. And to be clear, since she got the ear infection, I have never seen her on the wheel. I think she might have used it once or twice before she got the ear infection, but since getting it, she's just not interested. Now, with standard sizes, as I said, I have a 15-inch wheel in with my babies. And that is the smallest I'd go, and I'd only go that small for like petite female rats. Because male rats, even a 16-inch sometimes I worry is a little too small for them. And to be clear, that is the standard size that people recommend, is 16 inches, even for males. So it's fine. I just personally feel like some male rats are really, really big. The average size of a male rat, people say, is 450 grams to 650 grams. But I feel like that is not accurate. Like, yes, you can get a small male rat that's like 450 grams, but I feel like I've had one male rat that wasn't at least 600 grams, and that was Barber. And he was very tiny. He was smaller than some of my females. He was 400 grams. He was very small. All of my other male rats have been at least 600 grams, and some of them can get up to 800 grams. So I just feel like sometimes a 16-inch wheel may not be the best option for male rats. But I would just go with what works best for your rats. So if you have smaller male rats and you want to try a wheel, I'd say up to 700 grams. I think 16 inches would be fine. If you have really large male rats, that's when I would consider maybe not putting a wheel in for their safety. And on the note of safety, one thing you want to avoid with wheels is wire wheels. These are pretty common in pet stores, so if you have like dwarfs, you can find a 12-inch wire wheel. But you don't want to use them because their little toes can get caught in the wire when they're running, and it can cause a lot of damage. And those are going to be extremely hard to clean. And again, you get into sanitary issues with them constantly running on a wheel. It's dirty. If they get their foot cut, and some of that bacteria can get into their foot, it can cause bumblefoot. It can just be a mess. It can cause infections that aren't bumblefoot. It's just like, you want to avoid wire wheels. There's no like safety difference between like plastic and metal though. So if you find a 16-inch or make yourself a 16-inch wheel that is plastic and you want to try that, that is fine. Most of the 16-inch wheels you're going to find are going to be metal because they want them to be sturdy and last a long time so that you don't really have to worry about buying another wheel. Again, I've had my 2 Pandemonium Pets wheels for 5 years and they are no different from the day that I got them. They're just as quiet. The only time I've ever had an issue with them is when one of them was starting to come loose because the rats were running on it so much that it actually loosened the bolt. That's the only problem I've had with them. So now that we've gotten through the basics of the kinds of wheels you want, the question becomes, do you need them? Will your rats use them? And Polly, what are you doing? She's trying to get my attention. She's like sniffing at the bars from at the top and like I'm over there when I'm not. And so my experience, yeah, my rats have used them. My rats didn't use them for like a long time. I never bothered with a wheel after my first few rats because they never used it. And then I had my rat Rowley, and I had a wheel in there, and it wasn't a good wheel. It was one of those flying saucer wheels, and that's not good for them because they curve their back like this. And it's not a good wheel for them. But I had that in there, and she was really little at the time. She was only like 5-6 weeks old, so she could run on it just fine. And she used it, and I was like, are you kidding me? You're actually using a wheel? And so I got them a proper wheel not too long after that. So in my experience, yes, my rats do use their wheels. I have mostly standard size female rats experience with them, and all of them have used the wheels that I've given them, even Suitor and Lamb, who didn't get one until they were like 2 years old. I still catch them going on a little stroll in their wheels sometimes, looking all happy. So with standard size females, yes, they will definitely use them. My dwarf females definitely use them. I can hear them running on their wheel at night. And then that wheel, I catch Aggie on it all the time. But I think everyone except maybe Polly, all of my dwarfs except for Polly, I think use it. She just kind of stopped during her ear infection. And I don't think it's that she lost balance or anything. I think she lost interest because when she was at the worst with her ear infection, her balance was off. But she is fine now, and I think she just hasn't gotten the interest back. And with male dwarfs, they will also use the wheel because there's not a significant difference in like energy level between male dwarfs and female dwarfs. So male dwarfs, I think, tend to act more like baby rats a lot of the time, so they will continuously run on the wheel as well. So the only kind of rat, I think maybe if you get standard size males, if you just want to forego the wheel, it makes the most sense because it is a lot less common for standard size male rats to use it. I don't know why. I've had plenty of like very energetic standard size males. I've had them love to nest and they'll run all over the cage nesting, and then it's just like the wheel, they're just like, meh, no. So, you know. Now, if you want to forego the wheel altogether, no matter what kind of rat you get, that is also fine. You do not need a wheel. If you have an active cage layout, then they're not going to be getting more exercise just because there's a wheel. It is a good form of enrichment, and yes, they can exercise on it. But if you can't afford to get like a nice 16-inch wheel, or you just don't want to, I wouldn't worry about it too much because they will be fine. Like I said, it was only in 2019. I've had rats since 2009. And it was only in 2019 that I started consistently keeping a wheel in my rats' cages. And I do personally love it because it is so fun for me to look over and see a rat going full tilt on the wheel, just running for all they're worth. I personally think that's really cute. But if it's something you want to forego, you do not need to get a wheel. And now the last thing I'm going to talk about is wheel tail. So, I think I've talked about it before, but like you'll see some people talking about something called wheel tail, and that is when a rat's tail curves up or to the side unnaturally. So like when your rat is walking around, you want their tail to just like basically be flat when they're running around. And sometimes you'll get a rat whose tail curves up in a little curlicue or curls to the side in a similar way. And the name wheel tail can be a little bit misleading because it makes people think that it is always caused by a wheel. And it's really just caused that because, like, you know, it does curve up when they're on the wheel. But wheel tail is a shortening and lengthening of the ligaments in the tail. And it can happen regardless of if there's even a wheel in their cage. It can happen if they have a proper sized wheel, which is 16 inches. It can happen if they have a too small wheel. It can happen if they've never touched a wheel. It's just something that occurs with rats sometimes. I've had one rat that had wheel tail. She had it curled up over her back. And the thing with wheel tail is it's actually not the biggest deal. It doesn't really affect their balance, doesn't really affect their life. As long as they do have the ability to fully extend their tail, it's not even anything you necessarily need to worry about. If your rat has their tail curved and they cannot fully extend it, or they seem to be in pain when they try to, that is a sign that there is something wrong. They maybe fractured something or hurt their tail. Something happened with their tail, which means they might have some kind of spinal damage as well, and that's when you kind of want to maybe consider taking them to the vet. But yes, a rat that has never stepped foot on a wheel can have wheel tail, and a rat that has run on a wheel that is too small for their entire lives can get wheel tail. You'll occasionally see someone say that wheel tail is caused by a rat running on a too small wheel. Again, it's just a misnamed thing. You'll find that a lot of things with animals have like cutesy names or like weird names, like bumblefoot. It's like this really awful infection that they get in their feet, and it's called bumblefoot. It doesn't even sound that bad. It's like a cutesy name for an awful thing, and that's just kind of what happens a lot with animals, is they get these like cutesy names for these awful things. And wheel tail, again, doesn't necessarily affect them. But the thing with even a 16-inch wheel is their tail is not going to be completely flat. You'll see some people, I think the standard in some countries is that unless their back and tail can be completely flat, then the wheel is inappropriate. And that is not the case. I, again, have had my 16-inch wheels in their cages for 5 years. And I've had one rat with wheel tail, one confirmed case of wheel tail with all of my rats that I've had with wheels. So I wouldn't worry too much about wheel tail. And if you do get a rat that has that, they just hold their tail a little funny, and I wouldn't worry about it. They're not in pain. It doesn't affect their quality of life. It doesn't really affect their balance either. Like Orville was fine. Like, she was deaf and she had wheel tail, and she was like a little funny, but she was fine. It didn't really affect her at all. So yeah, in conclusion, you do not need a wheel for your rats, but if you want to get one, please get a size appropriate wheel that has solid flooring. And yeah, just don't be too upset if they don't use it. They probably will, but if they don't be too upset. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful for those of you who are wondering about wheels. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, you know what to do. All the fun stuff down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!